I never thought I'd be the guy to say this, but right now, as I'm telling you this, something from beyond our solar system has stopped drifting aimlessly and started sending perfectly structured signals straight at Earth. Yeah, you heard me. And the most powerful telescopes, from the rolling hills of Devon to orbital observatories circling above us, are locked on, watching it happen live. The baffling part? Nobody knows why. Not the experts at Jodrell Bank, not the astrophysicists at Cambridge, not even the military folks keeping quiet behind closed doors. If you think this sounds like science fiction, stick with me. What's coming next will shatter everything you thought you understood about reality. It all started with an interstellar traveler dubbed 3 Atlas, named after the British astronomer who first spotted it. This object isn't just some comet or asteroid casually passing through. It's a relic from a star system so far away. It's been journeying through space for potentially billions of years. And now, it's doing something that doesn't just bend the rules of physics, it smashes them to bits. Back in mid-October, when the Hubble Space Telescope was repositioned to focus on 3 Atlas, we were all expecting a dull, dim rock, something to write a few papers about, maybe a footnote in cosmic history. Instead, what we got was a cosmic curveball. The telescope picked up ripples, not gravitational waves, not the usual space noise, but coherent, structured electromagnetic waves emanating from the object. Imagine throwing a pebble into a pond and seeing ripples spread out in perfect patterns. Only this was happening on a cosmic scale millions of kilometers wide. Dr. Sarah Collins, a brilliant astrophysicist at Cambridge, was the first to notice. She was buried in terabytes of spectral data when she spotted something buried deep in the noise. A signal that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi novel. 6 times she ran diagnostics, convinced it was an instrument glitch or interference from Earth's satellites. Nope, this was the real deal. The frequency, exactly 1.42 gigahertz. To you, that might sound like a Wi-Fi channel on steroids, but to astronomers, it's the holy grail of the cosmos. This is the hydrogen line the frequency-neutral hydrogen atoms emit. Hydrogen is the most common element in the universe, so it's the one frequency that any advanced civilization, anywhere, would recognize as the cosmic hello. It's the universal dial tone. SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has been listening to this frequency for decades, hoping for a sign. Now Hubble had found it. But here's the kicker. Natural sources like nebulae or galaxies emit at this frequency, but they do so chaotically, like a noisy crowd at a football match. What Hubble caught was the opposite. A whisper. A precise, stable, mathematically perfect signal. As if someone was tuning a cosmic piano. This wasn't just a signal. It was a message. And it wasn't a friendly greetings, Earthlings. No, it was more like a cold, calculated demonstration of capability. The kind of message that makes you check the locks on your doors twice. 3 days after Hubble's discovery, the phenomenon went public, but not through the BBC or The Guardian. Instead, amateur radio operators across the Northern Hemisphere, from the quiet countryside of Yorkshire to bustling suburbs in Berlin and Tokyo, all reported the same strange event. Their receivers were flooded with static, not just a hiss or crackle, but an overwhelming white noise that lasted exactly 47 seconds. No more, no less, and then vanished like a magician's smoke bomb. At first, these reports seemed like curious coincidences. But when the data was mapped, the locations of the interference formed a perfect arc across the Earth's surface, pointing directly at 3 Atlas's position in the sky. It was like the universe was drawing an arrow saying, "Look here." Marcus Bedford, a telecommunications engineer from a small town near Manchester, was one of the first to analyze the strange 47-second burst. This guy wasn't just a hobbyist. His basement was packed with £500,000 worth of spectrum analyzers and gadgets that would make even NASA jealous. He ran a Fourier analysis, a fancy way of breaking down complex signals, and found something that left even the experts speechless. Hidden within the static was a repeating mathematical pattern, the Fibonacci sequence. You know, that sequence that shows up everywhere from sunflower petals to hurricanes. This wasn't random noise. It was a signature, a calling card from a mind that understood math, nature, and perhaps us. Experts scrambled to find a natural explanation. Solar flares? Nope. The Parker Solar Probe, orbiting the sun itself, reported calm conditions, no flares, no storms. Atmospheric reflections? Impossible, the event was too global and too synchronized. Magnetic resonance? No match. Every rational theory crumbled. What was left was terrifyingly clear. This was an intentional, deliberate broadcast. And it was only the beginning. End of part 1. After the shock of Marcus's discovery settled, the world's top astronomers and physicists doubled down on their observations. I was glued to the live feeds from Jodrell Bank Observatory, where the gargantuan Lovell telescope kept its unblinking eye on 3 Atlas. The excitement in the control room was electric, but beneath it, a low hum of unease buzzed. Because this wasn't just a strange rock. It was behaving like a carefully engineered machine. The next twist came from the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity's crown jewel in deep space observation. When Webb finally trained its golden infrared gaze on 3 Atlas, we expected a classic comet profile. A glowing coma, maybe some icy jets spewing off as it warmed near the sun. Instead, what we saw was unsettling. The object was absorbing light. Not reflecting it, not scattering it like a dusty rock, but swallowing almost every wavelength that hit it, from far infrared to ultraviolet. Imagine standing in a room where all the lights are on, but this thing was like a black hole, sucking in the glow around it. Dr. Amir Hassan, one of Webb's lead imaging specialists, called it the coldest, darkest object ever recorded beyond our solar system. Honestly, it sounded like the universe's worst party guest, always sucking the energy out of the room. But the strangest part? This temperature was dropping as it neared the sun. That's the exact opposite of what basic physics tells us should happen. Normally, you'd expect a comet or asteroid to heat up, its surface glowing brighter and brighter. But 3 Atlas? It was getting colder, like a cosmic ice cube refusing to melt. And then, the image that sent chills down spines worldwide appeared on the monitors. Hidden in the raw pixel data, after hours of spectral cleaning and processing, a pattern emerged on one side of the object. Not the usual craters or random lumps, but a series of perfectly aligned, repeating triangular shapes. Sharp edges, equidistant, unmistakably artificial. At first, the scientists in the room joked nervously. Someone quipped, "Maybe it's just the universe's way of sending us a Christmas tree." But the laughter died quickly. This was no glitch, no lens flare. The pattern persisted across every wavelength the Webb telescope observed, even in the notoriously difficult near-infrared range. Weeks of simulations followed. No known natural process could create such precise geometry. No mineral, no impact, no cosmic accident. It was designed. Someone or something had built this. And if that wasn't enough to rattle us, the triangular formations began to shift slightly, almost as if they were responding to our observations. Like a shy cat slowly creeping closer when you call its name, but far more unsettling because this cat was millions of miles away and potentially not feline at all. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the radio silence from official channels was deafening. Governments worldwide went into lockdown mode, quietly sealing off information. The European Space Agency even suspended public reports on 3 Atlas. It was clear, whatever was happening was bigger than any of us could imagine, and the powers that be weren't ready to share. Then came the signal from Canberra. During a routine tracking session, the Deep Space Network's massive 70-meter dish picked up a faint but unmistakably structured transmission at the same eerie 1.42 GHz frequency. But this time, the signal wasn't just a steady pulse. It was modulated, carrying data, digital, binary data. The team initially suspected it was a glitch or some reflection from Earth's own satellites. But the signal was the source itself. Pulses of short and long bursts came at precise 7-second intervals, repeating like the ticking of an otherworldly metronome. When they translated the binary stream into a spectrographic image, the pattern formed an elegant spiral, the Fibonacci curve again. I couldn't help but think, if this was a cosmic mixtape, it was playing the same track on repeat. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a message, it was a blueprint. Dr. Elena Navarro, a cryptographer at the European Space Agency, was called in to decode it. After hours of computations, she revealed that the pattern was a three-dimensional schematic, an architectural design eerily similar to those triangle formations on 3 Atlas. Some whispered it was a resonance chamber, a device to amplify energy through harmonic vibrations. Others feared it was a beacon or worse, a targeting array. And just like that, the universe went quiet again, but the tension was palpable. Whatever 3 Atlas was, it wasn't just drifting anymore. It was watching, responding, preparing. As the control rooms around the world held their breath, a chilling question hung in the air. If this visitor was sending us a message and a warning, what were we supposed to do next? End of part 2. The silence that followed felt like the calm before a cosmic storm. I was sitting in my flat in Dorset, staring at the flickering screen of the BBC's live science feed, when the next alert came in, from the European Space Agency's solar orbiter, peering straight at the sun. The image it captured sent a shiver down my spine. There, framed against the blazing corona of our star, was 3 Atlas in profile. But this was no ordinary celestial body. It appeared as a perfect void, an absolute black hole against the sun's fiery background, absorbing every bit of light that tried to bounce off it. Yet, from its surface pulsed a faint, rhythmic infrared glow every 12 minutes, like a heartbeat in the void. The precision of that pulse was unnerving. Every 12 minutes on the dot, without fail. It was as if the object was signaling in Morse code, but in a language we hadn't yet learned to read. Back at Jodrell Bank, I followed the analysis closely. Dr. Rowan Ellis, a senior astrophysicist known for his ice-cold composure and dry wit, dubbed it the eye of the storm. His team's trajectory calculations showed something we never expected. 3 Atlas wasn't just drifting. It was steering. A microscopic course correction had been detected, so infinitesimal that it couldn't be explained by gravity or outgassing. It was deliberate. I remember Ellis's deadpan comment during a briefing. Either it's got a steering wheel, or we're all about to discover the universe's most advanced driver. But the real shock came when analysts cross-referenced the infrared pulses with Earth's own magnetic field, focusing on a region known as the South Atlantic Anomaly. This area is infamous among satellite operators, a patch where Earth's protective radiation belt dips closest to the surface, causing glitches, mysterious blackouts, and unexplained malfunctions in spacecraft. The 12-minute pulses from 3 Atlas aligned perfectly with this weak spot, as if it was targeting it specifically. The thought sent a cold chill through me. If this was deliberate, we weren't just being observed, we were being aimed at. Then the data feeds began to flicker. Control rooms from Cambridge to Canberra reported power fluctuations, static interference, and scrambled data. Screens froze, instruments reset without explanation. And at precisely 12 minutes past the hour, a final, sharp pulse blasted through the systems before plunging them into darkness. Within seconds, chaos erupted. Air traffic control centers over Europe and South America went dark. GPS satellites lost synchronization, sending thousands of vehicles, planes, and ships into a navigational fog. Power grids surged and failed in perfect, catastrophic unison. For 7 long minutes, the most technologically connected civilization in history was blind, deaf, and dumb. I remember staring at my phone, the battery indicator blinking mockingly as my internet died. The silence was absolute, save for the distant hum of emergency sirens outside. At the European Space Operations Center in Darmstadt, engineers were left staring at dead monitors. All their failsafes and redundancies had been rendered useless, except for one deep space relay node, which stayed online just long enough to send a single compressed data fragment before it too shut down. When technicians finally decrypted the file, the room went cold. The data wasn't random. It was a map, a 3-dimensional projection overlaid on Earth's magnetosphere. At its center pulsed a faint light directly over the South Atlantic anomaly. Simultaneously, ground sensors scattered around the South Atlantic region, from Argentina's pampas to Namibia's deserts and remote island stations, reported unprecedented surges in atmospheric ionization. It was as if the planet itself had responded to the signal, awakening from a deep slumber. And then, just as quickly as it began, the emergency communication channel at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory crackled to life. The voice was calm but trembling. "It is reflecting something back. The signal, it is coming from Earth now." But here's the kicker, 3 Atlas was gone. Every telescope, radar, and satellite that had tracked it found nothing but empty space. It was as if the object had pulled a cosmic disappearing act, leaving no debris, no reflection, no trace. Not even a whisper of sunlight. The world was left staring into a void, both literal and figurative. In the days that followed, governments clammed up, issuing bland statements about solar storms and technical glitches. The media struggled to find a coherent narrative and soon moved on to more digestible headlines. But behind closed doors, the scientific community was in turmoil. The electromagnetic disturbances, the strange thermal readings, the global blackout, they hadn't vanished. They were etched into corrupted satellite telemetry, buried in deep space recordings, and embedded within Earth's own shifting magnetic field. It was as if 3 Atlas had left behind a fingerprint, a calling card, a warning we were only beginning to decipher. And somewhere, beyond the empty patch of sky where it once drifted, faint radio echoes still whispered that haunting sequence. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. The universe had just told us one thing loud and clear: we are not alone. End of part 3. The days after 3 Atlas vanished were like living inside a nightmare filtered through a scientific thriller. I kept checking every news outlet, every official update, hoping for some clarity, some reassurance. Instead, all we got were vague statements about solar anomalies and communication disruptions that barely scratched the surface of what had happened. But behind the curtain, the real work was happening. I managed to get a glimpse into some of the classified briefings, well, through a friend of a friend who works at Jodrell Bank, and the mood was grim. Scientists, cryptographers, and military physicists were locked in rooms with blackout curtains, running simulations, decoding lingering signals, and trying to piece together the aftermath of the event. The first breakthrough came from a small, secretive team working on the residual electromagnetic disturbances. They noticed subtle, repeating patterns embedded in the corrupted telemetry from the disabled satellites. These patterns weren't random glitches or noise. They were deliberate, encoded messages. I couldn't help but smirk when one of the junior researchers joked, "Turns out, even cosmic vandals like leaving graffiti." But this was no ordinary graffiti. The messages contained complex mathematical structures and references to the same Fibonacci sequence that had been woven through the initial signals. It was as if 3 Atlas had left behind a puzzle, a breadcrumb trail designed to be found and followed. Meanwhile, at the European Space Agency, Dr. Elena Navarro and her team worked tirelessly to decode fragments of the schematic leaked from earlier transmissions. The designs hinted at something far beyond our technology, a network of dormant structures scattered across the solar system, waiting for activation. Imagine the shock when they realized these weren't just theoretical constructs but potentially real megastructures, hidden in plain sight. Ancient relics placed by unknown civilizations eons ago, lying dormant until triggered. The idea felt like the plot of a Dan Brown novel crossed with a Black Mirror episode, but the data was stubbornly real. Back on Earth, the South Atlantic anomaly became a focal point of scrutiny. NASA's satellite data showed the region's magnetic field was fluctuating wildly, far beyond normal variations. Communication blackouts and instrument failures weren't random. They were symptoms of something much bigger. One night, a colleague texted me a photo of the anomaly's magnetic readings, overlaid with a faint spiral pattern eerily resembling the Fibonacci curve. It was like the Earth itself was humming a cosmic melody, one we were only beginning to hear. But the most unnerving discovery came from the cryptographers. The lingering signals contained fragments of what seemed to be a language, a mathematical code interwoven with physics and geometry. It wasn't a message in words but in concepts, an invitation to understand something fundamental about the universe. I have to admit, it made me feel like we were toddlers trying to decipher an ancient manuscript written in a language we barely understood, while the author watched silently from the shadows. As the weeks dragged on, the world outside remained oblivious. Life went on: footy matches, pub quizzes, rainy British mornings. But beneath the surface, an invisible war of knowledge was raging. And then, just when we thought things couldn't get stranger, a new anomaly appeared. This one wasn't in space or radio signals, it was right here on Earth. Satellite data detected a sudden, localized distortion in the fabric of spacetime near a remote part of the Scottish Highlands. The readings were subtle but unmistakable. A slight thinning of the vacuum, a bending of physical laws that defied explanation. The area was immediately cordoned off, with military units establishing a perimeter. Rumors swirled about secret research bases and emergency evacuation plans, but official channels stayed tight-lipped. I couldn't help but think, if 3 Atlas had been a key, maybe this was the lock it had opened, and as I stared at the map of the anomaly's location, I felt a mixture of awe and dread. Somewhere out there, beyond what we can see or touch, a story far older and stranger than humanity was unfolding, and we were right in the middle of it. Just then, my phone buzzed with a new alert. A faint radio signal had been detected, repeating the same haunting Fibonacci sequence. Only this time it was coming from deep within our own solar system. The game had just changed. End of Part 4. The discovery of the space-time distortion in the Scottish Highlands was like something straight out of a sci-fi thriller, except this was real life and real terrifying. I found myself driving through the misty backroads of the Highlands, trying to get close enough to see the site for myself. The air was thick with damp fog, and the landscape was eerily silent, save for the distant cry of a lone raven. Military checkpoints blocked the way, and the few locals I spoke to were tight-lipped, eyes darting nervously. One old farmer muttered about strange lights in the sky, and things moving that shouldn't be moving. I half expected him to offer me a tin-foil hat for good measure. At the perimeter, soldiers in dark uniforms with no insignia stood watch, their expressions unreadable beneath the brim of their caps. It was clear this was no ordinary operation. Meanwhile, back in London, the scientific teams were racing against the clock. The signals emanating from the solar system grew stronger, more complex. The Fibonacci sequence was repeating, but now it was interlaced with other mathematical patterns, prime numbers, fractals, and strange geometric sequences that seemed to defy earthly logic. It was as if the universe was sending us a symphony, and we had only caught the opening bars. Dr. Navarro described it as a cosmic language, written in the fabric of reality itself. She and her team worked around the clock, trying to decode the growing message, but every breakthrough was followed by new layers of complexity. And then there was the matter of the blackened object itself. Although 3 Atlas had vanished from sight, satellite data revealed subtle gravitational anomalies near the asteroid belt. Tiny perturbations that suggested something massive, but hidden, was stirring. Speculation ran wild. Was there a hidden structure cloaked in darkness somewhere between Mars and Jupiter? A relic of an ancient civilization? Or something far more sinister? On a whim, I reached out to an old friend, Emily Carter, a brilliant but unconventional astrophysicist based in Cambridge. Emily had a knack for seeing patterns where others saw chaos, and I needed her insight. When I explained the situation, she laughed. A short, dry chuckle that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Matt," she said, "you're telling me the universe just dropped a coded blueprint, a ghost ship, and a cosmic puzzle right on our doorstep, and you want me to believe it's all coincidence?" She wasn't buying it, and frankly, neither was I. Emily joined the decoding effort, bringing in her own team of mathematicians and codebreakers. Together, they began to unravel what appeared to be instructions, architectural blueprints for a device capable of manipulating spacetime. It was as if 3 Atlas had been a key, designed not just to communicate, but to unlock something buried deep in our solar system. But the most unnerving part? The last segment of the message hinted at a countdown, a sequence that seemed to be ticking closer to an unknown event. As the days passed, strange phenomena began cropping up worldwide. Power surges in major cities, unexplained electromagnetic pulses, and bizarre animal behavior. Birds migrating off course, fish washing up on shores in strange patterns, and even reports of people experiencing vivid, shared dreams of starry skies and impossible geometry. It felt like the planet itself was reacting, awakening to something beyond our comprehension. Back in Edinburgh, the space-time distortion site grew into a hive of activity. Scientists, military personnel, and technicians worked side by side, their faces marked with exhaustion and wonder. Security was tighter than ever, and rumors of secret government projects fueled speculation. One evening, Emily and I stood outside the perimeter, staring up at the darkening sky. She pulled her coat tighter around her and said, "Matt, whatever's coming, it's not just about us. It's about the entire solar system waking up." I couldn't argue with her. Somewhere in the vastness of space, an ancient story was unfolding, and we were caught right in its path. And then, just as we were about to head back, a sudden burst of static crackled from my radio scanner. The same Fibonacci sequence, but faster, more urgent. The countdown had begun. End of part 5. That night, as the cold highland wind whipped around us, the urgency in that Fibonacci sequence crackling through my radio felt almost like a heartbeat. Steady, relentless, impossible to ignore. Emily and I stood there, eyes locked on the sky as if it might crack open and reveal some cosmic secret. I half expected a UFO to swoop down and hand us a cup of tea. But alas, the universe wasn't that polite. Back in the command center tucked away beneath the Scottish mist, tension was thick enough to cut with a scalpel. Scientists and military officials crowded around screens displaying streams of data, their faces pale and drawn. The countdown embedded within the signals was now impossible to dismiss. It was inching closer to something. What, nobody knew. But the silence that followed each pulse was deafening. Meanwhile, reports started flooding in from around the globe. Devices glitching in sync with the signals, unexplained power fluctuations, and worst of all, strange atmospheric phenomena. Over London, auroras, typically a rare northern spectacle, danced unnaturally low in the sky. Streetlights flickered, and for a brief moment, the Thames shimmered with an ethereal glow. One cheeky local tweeted, "London's finally getting that disco vibe, courtesy of space aliens." I couldn't help but chuckle, though the joke felt hollow. Emily was convinced the signals were triggering something, a cascade effect that could ripple through Earth's magnetosphere and beyond. "It's like poking a sleeping dragon," she said. "Except we don't know if it's going to roar or just sneeze." As the countdown ticked on, the scientific community scrambled to prepare. Emergency meetings were held in places like the Royal Observatory in Greenwich and the UK Space Agency's quiet offices. Protocols for potential space-based threats were dusted off and debated with grim seriousness. The government's usual secrecy only fueled public speculation, and conspiracy forums exploded overnight. One particularly imaginative post claimed the countdown was a celestial bake-off, with 3 Atlas as the judge. I had to admit, the mental image of an alien jury tasting cosmic cupcakes was a welcome distraction. But beneath the humor lay a deep unease. The signals weren't just math or code. They felt purposeful, alive almost, like a message written not just to be read, but to be felt. Then, on a crisp autumn morning, the unthinkable happened. Across Europe, satellite communications began to drop out in waves. GPS devices lost lock, airplanes reported intermittent navigation errors, and emergency services scrambled to maintain contact. In London, the tube's signaling systems faltered, causing delays that would have made even the Queen grumble. At Jodrell Bank, the giant dish spun wildly, trying to reacquire signals, but all that came back was static, interspersed with faint echoes of that recurring Fibonacci pattern. Emily and I watched the monitors in stunned silence. The countdown had reached 0, and then, from the void, came a pulse. A rhythmic, powerful burst of energy that rippled through the data streams, shaking the very foundations of our instruments. For a moment, everything went dark. But in that blackout, something else emerged. A whisper, subtle, almost imperceptible, carried on the electromagnetic waves. It was a sequence, a pattern repeating over and over again. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. Not just a message, but a promise. And then the screens flickered back to life, revealing a new image. One that no one could explain. A vast, intricate lattice of interconnected triangles, stretching across the void of space. The same triangular geometry seen on 3 Atlas, now rendered in glowing lines, pulsating gently. It was a map, a blueprint, a message that said, "We are here, and you are not alone." As the realization sank in, Emily whispered, "This is just the beginning." And somewhere, far beyond our reach, a faint echo repeated once more, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. The universe had opened its door, and we had no idea what was waiting on the other side. End of part 6. The revelation hit me like a thunderclap. That glowing lattice of triangles wasn't just a map. It was a cosmic blueprint, a design for something far beyond human understanding. The kind of structure that could rewrite physics textbooks and redefine what it means to exist. And the fact that it was pulsing, alive with energy, suggested it wasn't just a static diagram, it was active, waiting. In the sprawling control room at Jadrell Bank, the usual hum of equipment was replaced by stunned silence. Scientists whispered theories, some desperate, others frankly terrified. Emily, standing next to me, looked pale but determined. "This," she said quietly, "is a call to arms. We have to figure out what it means. And fast." The map pointed to a specific location beyond the orbit of Neptune, somewhere in the mysterious Kuiper Belt. A region we thought was just a frozen wasteland, but now seemed like the stage for whatever was unfolding. I remember joking, half to break the tension, half in disbelief. Great, just what we need. Another cosmic mystery hiding in the coldest, darkest part of the solar system. Maybe it's where they keep the universe's lost socks. Emily didn't laugh. She was too focused. Meanwhile, governments around the world were scrambling. Classified meetings, emergency briefings, and silent phone calls filled the days. The UK's Ministry of Defence quietly increased satellite patrols, while the US and Russia exchanged terse messages behind closed doors. The world's superpowers suddenly shared something rare, genuine fear. Back on the streets of London, the public remained largely unaware, except for the occasional news blip about space weather and technical outages. But underground, in forums and chat rooms, speculation ran wild. Alien invasions, secret government cover-ups, and cosmic conspiracies flourished. In one particularly memorable thread, a user going by Stargazer42 claimed the patterns were coordinates to a hidden alien base. And no, it wasn't on Mars, it was way cooler, beneath the ice of Europa. I had to admit, the idea of aliens chilling under frozen water moons had a certain cinematic flair. But the truth was more chilling. The signals and the map indicated something ancient, something dormant but powerful, waiting for the right moment or the right trigger. As days turned into nights, I found myself unable to tear my eyes away from the data streams. The Fibonacci sequence kept appearing, woven through signals like a cosmic heartbeat. It was a pattern of life, order, and growth. But in this context, it felt like a countdown to something else. Then, during a late-night call with Emily, she dropped a bombshell. "Matt, the latest readings from the South Atlantic anomaly show energy levels spiking again. Whatever this is, it's targeting Earth's weak spots." I shivered. The anomaly had always been a vulnerability, a soft spot in our planet's magnetic shield. Now it seemed like a doorway, and just when I thought things couldn't get any stranger, the first official footage leaked. Grainy, shaky video from a classified satellite showed a massive structure partially concealed in the Kuiper Belt. An enormous triangular edifice, dark against the stars, its surface shimmering with unknown energy. The world held its breath. As I watched the image flicker on my screen, I felt a mix of awe and dread. Whatever had arrived here was not just a visitor. It was a presence. And as the signals continued, the question that haunted us all grew louder. What did it want? End of part 7. The leaked footage spread like wildfire. I remember sitting in a cramped cafe in Bristol, the screen of my tablet casting a pale glow on my face as the grainy video played over and over. The massive triangular structure lurking in the Kuiper Belt was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Its edges sharp and precise, its surface pulsing with a faint, otherworldly light that seemed to flicker in time with the Fibonacci sequence we'd been obsessing over. People called it the Dark Beacon, a name that stuck as quickly as the video went viral. Social media exploded with theories. Was it a warning, a portal, or a weapon? The conspiracy forums were ablaze, but amid the chaos, the world's leading scientists scrambled to make sense of it all behind closed doors. Emily and I were summoned to a classified briefing at the UK Space Agency headquarters in Harwell. The room was thick with tension, the air heavy with unspoken fears. Dr. Hassan, now visibly more worn from sleepless nights, presented the latest data. The dark beacon wasn't just a structure. It was a functioning device, actively interacting with the solar environment. He showed us spectral analyses revealing the beacon was emitting low-frequency pulses that subtly altered the solar wind, the stream of charged particles flowing from the sun. It was like the object was tuning the very breath of our star, orchestrating a cosmic symphony we could barely comprehend. Emily leaned over and whispered, "It's not just watching anymore. It's influencing." Outside, the world remained oblivious, but the implications were staggering. If the dark beacon could manipulate solar activity, it could affect everything, from Earth's climate to satellite operations, even the delicate balance of life itself. Then came the disturbing reports from the South Atlantic anomaly. Energy surges intensified, causing widespread satellite disruptions and even localized power outages across parts of South America and Southern Africa. Scientists speculated the beacon signals were focusing on this vulnerable magnetic weakness, possibly as a means of establishing a connection or a foothold. One evening, as I walked along the Thames, the city's lights flickered ominously. Tourists snapped pictures of the unnatural auroras dancing overhead, casting ghostly greens and purples against London's skyline. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once, like the sky itself was trying to communicate. Back in the lab, Emily and I pored over the growing mountain of data. The signals were evolving, becoming more complex, layered with cryptic mathematical constructs that suggested an intelligence far beyond our own. It was as if the beacon was sending us a message encoded in the language of the cosmos. But what was it saying? Then, late one night, the breakthrough came. Using advanced decoding algorithms, Emily's team managed to extract a fragment of what appeared to be a greeting, simple, elegant, and chilling in its clarity. "We see you." The words echoed through the control room, silencing everyone. It was the first direct communication we'd ever received from beyond our world. No cryptic sequences, no coded patterns, just that stark, undeniable statement. A hush fell over the room. The message was a declaration, a confirmation that whatever intelligence controlled the dark beacon was fully aware of us. And with that realization came a surge of questions. Were we being observed, tested, or invited? Or was this a warning? As the night deepened, Emily turned to me, eyes reflecting the flickering screens. "Matt, we're no longer just observers. We're participants." Outside, the auroras pulsed in time with the beacon's signal, a cosmic heartbeat syncing with our own. And somewhere, in the cold darkness beyond Neptune, the dark beacon waited. End of part 8. The words, "We see you," hung in the air like a silent thunderclap. I sat back, heart pounding, staring at the screen as if it might suddenly burst into flames. For centuries, humanity had gazed at the stars, wondering if we were alone. Now, the cosmos had answered not with a hello, but with a statement that felt both ominous and intimate. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at the UK Space Agency shifted from stunned disbelief to urgent action. Governments convened emergency councils. Scientists from every corner of the globe collaborated in unprecedented secrecy. The world's brightest minds, including Emily and me, were pulled deeper into the heart of the mystery. The dark beacon signals grew more intricate, weaving fractal patterns and prime number sequences into a tapestry of cosmic communication. It was as if the beacon was testing us, pushing us to understand, to respond, to prove ourselves worthy. At Jodrell Bank, the giant dish strained to pick up every nuance of the transmissions. The Fibonacci sequence kept returning, a rhythmic pulse threading through the chaos, like a cosmic metronome guiding the dance. But then, something changed. Sensors detected a subtle shift in the Earth's magnetosphere, a faint but unmistakable ripple emanating from the South Atlantic anomaly. Power grids across parts of South America flickered. Satellites wavered in their orbits. It was as if the planet itself was stirring, responding to a call we didn't yet comprehend. One afternoon, I found myself in a secure briefing room, watching a live feed from a remote observatory in the Australian outback. The sky was clear, the stars blazing bright. Suddenly, the telescope's instruments registered a spike, a burst of energy and light streaming from the direction of the dark beacon. The feed showed the triangular structure pulsing, its edges glowing with an intensity that defied explanation. For a moment it seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like a living thing. Then came the transmission. Unlike before, this was no simple greeting. It was a complex, layered message encoded in light and electromagnetic waves. Dr. Navarro's team worked feverishly to decode it, their faces pale with exhaustion. Hours later, the first fragments were revealed. A 3D geometric sequence, matching the triangular patterns on the beacon's surface. But embedded within were symbols, ancient-looking, yet mathematical, suggesting a language built on universal constants. Emily turned to me, voice barely above a whisper. This isn't just a message. It's an invitation. Or a challenge. The world was holding its breath. Then the unthinkable happened. A global network of radio telescopes picked up a new signal, this one coming not from deep space, but from within our own solar system. A faint, rhythmic pulse emanating from the asteroid belt, near the location where the earlier gravitational anomalies had been detected. The pulse matched the Fibonacci sequence, but this time it was different. It was a call directed at us, from somewhere much closer than we expected. As I stared at the data, a chilling thought gripped me. The cosmic visitor hadn't just arrived. It had activated something hidden in our own backyard, an ancient system waiting for us to find it. And with that realization came a question that echoed in every mind connected to the network. What had we awakened? End of part 9. The activation signal pulsing from the asteroid belt was like a cosmic alarm bell ringing through the void. It wasn't just a message anymore, it was a summons. Something buried in the dark, cold rocks orbiting the sun had stirred to life, responding to the mysterious call from the dark beacon. I found myself back at Jadrell Bank, surrounded by the buzz of frantic scientists and flashing consoles. The atmosphere was electric, charged with a mix of hope and dread. The countdown we'd been fearing now felt like a door swinging open to a reality far beyond our imagining. Emily stood beside me, her eyes reflecting the flickering data streams. "Matt," she said, voice steady but filled with awe. "We're on the edge of something monumental. Whatever this is, it's bigger than us." The newly activated signal was complex, layered with the same mathematical sequences we'd seen before, the Fibonacci spiral, prime numbers, and fractal patterns, all woven into a broadcast that seemed to transcend time and space. As scientists worked feverishly to decode the transmission, an eerie realization dawned. This wasn't just a message from an alien intelligence. It was a key, a cosmic cipher designed to unlock a network of ancient constructs hidden throughout our solar system. The implications were staggering. For millennia, unknown civilizations had seeded our cosmic neighborhood with these dormant structures, waiting for the right moment or the right species to awaken them. And now that moment was here. Suddenly, the instruments detected a surge, an immense burst of energy radiating from the asteroid belt. It rippled through space-time itself, bending the very fabric of reality around us. The room fell silent as the first images emerged on the screens. Towering geometric monoliths rising from the shadows of asteroids, their surfaces shimmering with an alien light. The triangular patterns we'd seen on 3 Atlas and the dark beacon were etched into these colossal structures, linking them in a vast, interconnected web. As the data streamed in, a haunting question echoed through every mind present. What purpose did this network serve? Were they sentinels, weapons, or something else entirely? Before anyone could answer, the power in the control room flickered. The monitors dimmed, and a low hum filled the air, a sound both mechanical and organic. Then, from the depths of the signal, a final, chilling transmission came through, clear and unmistakable. "You have awakened, US." The words hung in the silence like a promise, and a warning. Outside, the night sky shimmered with unnatural light, as if the cosmos itself was holding its breath. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of our telescopes, a shadow moved, watching, waiting. The story was far from over.